The sun blazed over the city of Rome as tourists flocked to one of the most iconic structures in history, the Colosseum. Built nearly 2,000 years ago, this grand amphitheater still stood tall, whispering stories of a civilization that once ruled the world. The Colosseum was not just a stadium, it was an architectural marvel, designed with underground tunnels, a complex drainage system, and seating arrangements that allowed 50,000 spectators to enter and exit in minutes. Despite earthquakes and centuries of wear, its massive arches and stone framework held firm, proving that Roman engineering was far ahead of its time. Standing before it, a modern architect marveled at the genius of its construction, wondering how such an advanced structure was built with the tools of that era. Beyond the Colosseum, the roads of the Roman Empire stretched like veins across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. The Romans built over 400,000 kilometers of roads, many of which still exist today, forming the foundation of modern transportation networks. Their secret? Layers of stone, gravel, and sand compacted so tightly that they lasted for centuries. Roman roads were slightly curved to let rainwater drain off easily, preventing erosion. Even now, highways across Europe follow the same paths laid by Roman engineers. As a civil engineer drove down an ancient Roman road in England, he couldn't help but admire how their techniques still shaped modern infrastructure, proving that innovation from the past remains relevant. Another breathtaking marvel was the aqueducts. Massive bridges carrying fresh water from mountains to cities miles away. Using precise calculations, Roman engineers designed these structures with gradual slopes, ensuring a steady flow without modern pumps. The Pont du Gard in France and the Aqua Claudia in Rome still stand as symbols of this brilliance. These aqueducts supplied water to homes, baths, and fountains, giving Romans a lifestyle that was unmatched in the ancient world. Even today, parts of these aqueducts are functional, integrated into modern water systems. A historian once stood beneath the towering arches of an ancient aqueduct, feeling the cool shade it provided, realizing that Roman innovation was not just about grandeur, but also about practicality and sustainability. The Pantheon, another Roman masterpiece, has the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, still standing strong after nearly 2,000 years. The secret to its durability lies in its unique construction. Lightweight volcanic rock mixed with concrete and progressively lighter materials as the dome rises. The oculus, a massive hole at the center, not only allows natural light to flood in, but also reduces pressure on the structure. Engineers today still study the Pantheon's design, unable to fully replicate its strength with modern materials. A group of students visited the monument, their professor explaining how the Romans mastered concrete in ways that even today's technology struggles to match. As they stood beneath the dome, they felt the presence of a civilization that refused to be forgotten. Not far from Rome, the city of Pompeii lay frozen in time, buried under volcanic ash from Mount Vesuvius's eruption in 79 AD. Excavations revealed astonishing Roman engineering. A city designed with paved streets, underground drainage, and even public baths with heated floors. The Romans pioneered a form of central heating called the hypocaust, where hot air circulated beneath floors to warm homes and bathhouses. Walking through the preserved ruins, a researcher noted how modern heating systems still follow the same principles, proving that Roman innovations were not just grand, but deeply practical. Even the layout of Pompeii, with its grid-like streets and organized neighborhoods, served as a blueprint for modern urban planning. Perhaps one of the greatest legacies of Roman engineering is their bridges. The Alcantara Bridge in Spain, built in the 2nd century AD, still supports traffic today. Constructed using massive stone blocks without mortar, the bridge's design evenly distributes weight, preventing collapse. Roman bridges inspired the arched structures seen in modern constructions, from railways to highways. A modern-day engineer, standing atop the Alcantara Bridge, traced its curves with his hand, realizing that the Romans didn't just build for their time, they built for eternity. Even after centuries, their structure stood as a testament to human ingenuity, inspiring new generations to dream of the impossible. Caligula's reign is remembered for its madness, extravagance, and cruelty. But what if much of what we know about him was carefully crafted by those who truly held power? His sudden rise, his unchecked authority, and his eventual downfall all followed a pattern too precise to be mere coincidence. Historians often debate whether Caligula was truly insane or if he was simply a puppet whose strings were pulled by unseen forces. In the beginning, his rule was welcomed. He freed political prisoners, lowered taxes, and even held grand games to win public favor. But then, almost overnight, his behavior changed. He declared himself a god, forced senators to worship him, and executed anyone who questioned his rule. Some believe this was the work of custodes umbrae, systematically dismantling his reputation to prepare for his removal. The secret operatives of Rome knew that the best way to control an empire was not by placing the strongest ruler on the throne, but by ensuring that no ruler became too strong. A weak emperor was easier to manipulate, and by making Caligula appear unstable, they created the perfect excuse for his assassination. The final blow came in 41 AD when members of the Praetorian Guard stormed his palace and ended his reign in a brutal ambush. But there's something strange about his assassination. It was too well coordinated, too perfect. Within hours of his death, his uncle Claudius was declared emperor, and all opposition disappeared as if it had never existed. Some say this was mere political maneuvering, but those who understand how Rome truly worked suspect otherwise. The rise of Claudius was no accident. He was never meant to be emperor. He had been mocked for his disabilities and ignored by the Senate for years, but that made him the perfect choice. The custodes umbrae needed someone they could control, someone grateful enough for the throne that he would listen to those who had placed him there. Under his rule, Rome expanded, great public works were built, and the empire flourished. But was it really Claudius who ruled? Or was it the unseen hand of those who had orchestrated his rise? As history repeated itself, one thing became clear. The most powerful people in Rome were not the ones whose names were remembered. They were the ones whose names had been erased. As Claudius sat on the throne, he must have realized that his fate was not entirely in his hands. Unlike his predecessors, he had not fought for power. Power had been handed to him, and in Rome, that was both a blessing and a curse. He tried to rule wisely, expanding Rome's borders and improving its administration, but he was always surrounded by those who whispered in the shadows. His own wife, Messalina, became infamous for her unchecked ambitions, manipulating court politics to place her allies in key positions. When her schemes became too dangerous, she was executed in what appeared to be a desperate move by Claudius to regain control. But was it really his decision, Or had the custodes umbrae determined that she had become a liability? Despite his intelligence, Claudius remained a puppet. His advisors, many of whom came from seemingly low backgrounds, wielded more power than senators. One of them, Narcissus, had risen from being a mere scribe to controlling vast political networks, ensuring that messages reached only those who were meant to receive them. Another, Pallas, handled Rome's finances, mysteriously making and unmaking fortunes overnight. These were not ordinary men. They were the hidden architects of Rome's future, and when Claudius outlived his usefulness, his fate was sealed. In 54 AD, he died suddenly, allegedly poisoned by his own wife, Agrippina. Officially, it was said she wanted to secure the throne for her son, Nero. But those who understand Rome's hidden power structure suspect something much deeper. The transition to Nero was swift, almost too smooth for an empire that had seen so much bloodshed over succession disputes. Within days, he was declared emperor, and opposition crumbled before it could even rise. This was not normal. It was as if Rome had already been prepared for his rule before Claudius had even died. But Nero, unlike Claudius, was unpredictable. He did not want to be a puppet. He wanted to be a god. And that made him dangerous. The custodes umbrae could control many things, but an emperor who believed he answered to no one was a threat even to them. And so, the stage was set for yet another fall, another shift in power orchestrated not by soldiers or senators, but by those who had always ruled from the shadows. Even in agriculture, the Romans demonstrated remarkable engineering skills, developing irrigation systems that transformed dry lands into fertile fields. They built extensive networks of canals, reservoirs, and underground tunnels to transport water efficiently. One of their most brilliant techniques was the use of water-powered mills, which automated grain grinding, reducing labor and increasing food production. In modern times, archaeologists have discovered remains of these mills still intact, proving their long-lasting impact. A farmer visiting an ancient Roman irrigation site in Spain couldn't help but admire how their methods closely resembled the modern irrigation systems used today, proving that Roman agricultural innovations were far ahead of their time. Transportation was another area where the Romans excelled. Besides their well-constructed roads, they also developed advanced shipping routes, using harbors strategically placed along the Mediterranean. Roman ships, built with waterproof concrete docks, could withstand harsh waves and provide stable docking points. The Portus harbor near Rome was one of the most sophisticated maritime hubs, with artificial islands and large warehouses to store goods. Modern ports still follow similar designs, showing how Roman logistics influenced global trade. A shipping engineer standing at the ruins of Portus realized how the Romans had mastered efficiency, allowing their economy to thrive across continents, setting a precedent for the global trade networks we see today. One of the most fascinating Roman engineering feats was their ability to build multi-story buildings. The insulae, or Roman apartment buildings, were constructed to house growing urban populations. These structures, some reaching up to 6 or 7 stories, had wooden or stone staircases, balconies, and even early forms of fire prevention, such as water storage tanks on rooftops. While wealthier citizens lived in lavish villas, most Romans lived in these apartments, showing that urban density and high-rise living were not modern concepts. Walking through the remains of an ancient Roman insula, an architect noted how even today's apartment designs echoed the same principles of space saving, proving that Romans had pioneered modern city living centuries ago. The Romans also excelled in entertainment technology, creating mechanisms that enhanced performances in theaters and amphitheaters. Theaters like the one in Orange, France, were designed with perfect acoustics, allowing even whispers on stage to be heard by thousands of spectators. They also built retractable awnings, known as the velarium, over the Colosseum to protect crowds from the sun, a concept still seen in modern stadiums with retractable roofs. Some theaters even had elaborate stage machinery, including trapdoors and rotating platforms, to create dramatic effects during performances. A sound engineer visiting an ancient Roman theater was amazed at how their knowledge of acoustics rivaled modern sound design, proving that their engineering extended beyond practicality. It enriched culture and entertainment. Another lesser-known Roman invention was their use of glass in architecture. They were among the first to produce clear glass windows, allowing light to enter homes and public buildings. This advancement revolutionized interior spaces, making rooms brighter and more comfortable. Roman bathhouses used large glass panels to trap heat, an early form of solar heating. Their glassmaking techniques later influenced medieval Europe and, ultimately, modern window manufacturing. A scientist examining a fragment of Roman glass under a microscope was fascinated by its composition, realizing that the Romans had pioneered a technology that shaped modern architecture in ways most people never consider. Perhaps the greatest testament to Roman engineering genius is its resilience. Despite wars, earthquakes, and centuries of natural wear, many of their structures still stand, while modern buildings require constant maintenance and restoration. This durability was no accident. It was the result of meticulous planning, high-quality materials, and an understanding of physics that was far ahead of its time. A group of engineers studying ancient Roman ruins concluded that if today's cities adopted even half of their techniques, our infrastructure would last much longer. The Romans didn't just build for themselves. They built for eternity, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire the modern world. The Romans also pioneered water management on an industrial scale, ensuring their cities never faced shortages. Apart from their famous aqueducts, they developed massive cisterns and underground reservoirs to store excess water. The Basilica cistern in Istanbul, originally built by the Romans, still holds water today, showcasing their expertise in long-term water storage. These reservoirs ensured a steady supply even in times of drought, a principle still used in modern water conservation efforts. A civil engineer visiting an ancient Roman cistern was astounded by its size and durability, realizing that today's cities could learn valuable lessons from the Romans in sustainable water management. Beyond cities, Roman engineering extended to vast networks of tunnels and mines. They used advanced ventilation shafts, wooden supports, and even water-powered drilling machines to extract valuable resources like gold, silver, and lead. The Las Medulas gold mines in Spain, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, still show evidence of Roman hydraulic mining, where water pressure was used to break apart rocks and extract minerals. This method was so effective that variations of it are still used in modern mining. A geologist standing at the ruins of an old Roman mine noted how their understanding of natural forces allowed them to develop techniques that shaped the future of mineral extraction. One of the most overlooked but essential aspects of Roman engineering was their approach to disaster-proofing structures. In earthquake-prone regions, They used flexible materials like wooden beams within stone walls to absorb shocks. The city of Herculaneum, buried alongside Pompeii, preserved evidence of such construction techniques, as some buildings remained remarkably intact despite the eruption. Roman architects even designed buildings with arched foundations to distribute seismic forces, an approach similar to modern earthquake-resistant structures. A structural engineer analyzing the ruins of Herculaneum realized that many of today's advanced safety features were merely refinements of techniques the Romans had mastered centuries ago. Roman engineering wasn't just about large-scale projects. It extended into everyday life, influencing household innovations that made life more comfortable. One such example was the hypocaust system, an early form of central heating used in homes and bathhouses. Hot air was circulated beneath floors and through hollow walls, evenly distributing warmth throughout a building. This method, far more advanced than open fireplaces, inspired modern radiant heating systems. Archaeologists studying ancient Roman villas found remnants of hypocaust networks still intact, proving that the Romans had perfected indoor heating long before modern technology. A heating specialist visiting a preserved hypocaust system in England, amazed at its efficiency, realizing that ancient innovations still held relevance in modern energy conservation. Another remarkable Roman invention was their advanced road signage and mile markers, which made travel and trade more efficient. Unlike earlier civilizations that relied on vague directions, Romans placed stone markers along roads to indicate distances, directions, and even the names of emperors who commissioned the roads. This system laid the groundwork for modern highway signs and navigation. A logistics expert studying the remnants of Roman road markers in France realized that the structured way Romans organized their roads was no different from how modern GPS and signposting work, proving that they had established an efficient transportation network that shaped modern mobility. One of the most unexpected Roman contributions was their impact on bookmaking and libraries. While earlier societies relied on scrolls, the Romans developed the codex, a stack of bound pages resembling modern books. This format made reading and storing texts far more convenient, leading to the widespread collection of knowledge. Public libraries, such as those in Ephesus and Rome, became centers of learning, much like modern institutions today. A historian flipping through a reconstructed Roman codex realized that the very concept of books and libraries, which we take for granted, had roots in Roman innovation, making them pioneers of knowledge preservation and distribution. Roman engineering also played a crucial role in military technology, allowing their legions to dominate battlefields for centuries. They built mobile bridges, fortifications, and siege engines that gave them a tactical advantage in warfare. The Romans designed portable wooden bridges that could be assembled and dismantled quickly, enabling their armies to cross rivers with ease. One of their most impressive feats was the bridge over the Rhine, constructed in just 10 days to facilitate a military campaign in Germania. Modern military engineers studying Roman battlefield strategies realized that their emphasis on mobility and adaptability directly influenced modern military logistics and engineering. Another engineering marvel was their mastery of defensive walls and fortifications. The Romans built fortified camps known as castra, with watchtowers, moats, and strategically placed gates, ensuring maximum defense. These designs later influenced medieval castle construction. One of the most well-preserved Roman forts, House Steads on Hadrian's Wall, still showcases their advanced urban planning within military bases. A defense strategist walking through the remains of a Roman fort observed how their layouts resembled modern military bases, proving that their defensive strategies were timeless. Perhaps one of the most enduring symbols of Roman engineering brilliance is the Pantheon, a structure that has stood for nearly 2,000 years. Its massive dome, the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, was an architectural breakthrough. The oculus at its center allows natural light to illuminate the interior while reducing structural weight, demonstrating an understanding of physics and materials ahead of its time. Architects still study the Pantheon's design, trying to understand how the Romans achieved such stability without modern reinforcement techniques. A structural engineer standing beneath the massive dome realized that even with today's technology, recreating such a perfect structure would be a challenge, proving that Roman architects had mastered their craft in ways that continue to inspire the world. Beyond grand monuments, the Romans also pioneered public infrastructure that directly improved the daily lives of their citizens. Their extensive drainage and sewage systems, such as the Cloaca Maxima in Rome, revolutionized sanitation. Unlike many ancient civilizations that struggled with waste management, the Romans built underground tunnels and channels to carry sewage away from populated areas, reducing the spread of disease. The design was so effective that parts of these drainage systems are still in use today. A modern urban planner studying ancient Roman sanitation systems realized that their methods were not only practical but also sustainable, laying the foundation for modern wastewater management. The Romans also introduced standardized measurements and tools, ensuring consistency in construction and trade. They developed precise units of length, weight, and volume, which allowed for uniformity across the vast empire. This system ensured that roads, aqueducts, and buildings were constructed with remarkable accuracy. Roman architects used instruments like the groma for surveying and the chorobates for leveling, both of which resemble modern measuring tools. A civil engineer examining ancient Roman blueprints was astounded by the precision in their designs, proving that their attention to detail rivaled today's engineering standards. Perhaps the most overlooked yet significant Roman innovation was their postal and communication network, known as the cursus publicus. This system of relay stations and couriers enabled messages to travel quickly across the empire, facilitating governance and military coordination. The speed and efficiency of the Roman postal system were unmatched in the ancient world, resembling modern mail and delivery services. A logistics expert analyzing ancient Roman records noted that the structure of today's postal services mirrors the relay-based efficiency of the cursus publicus, proving that Rome's influence extends even into the digital age. Either way, the fire became the turning point in Nero's rule. After the fire, Nero made a critical mistake. He sought to shift the blame onto a small religious group called the Christians. This decision, meant to divert public anger, instead fueled resentment against him. The hidden hands that had once supported him began to withdraw. His lavish spending and paranoia grew worse, and soon even his most trusted officials turned against him. The Praetorian Guard, once fiercely loyal, began receiving whispers from unseen figures, reminding them that emperors came and went, but Rome remained. The Senate, sensing weakness, declared him an enemy of the state, a move that had never been done so swiftly before. It was clear. Nero's time was up, and the forces that had once raised him now sought his end. In 68 AD, Nero fled, abandoned by those who had once praised him. He took his own life, marking the first time a Roman emperor had been forced into suicide. But his death was not just the end of a ruler. It was proof that no emperor, no matter how powerful, was ever truly in control. The empire did not collapse. Rome did not mourn. Instead, it moved forward, as it always had, guided by those who worked in silence. And as the year of the four emperors unfolded, the pattern repeated itself. Power shifting hands, rulers rising and falling, but the true masters of Rome remaining unseen, continuing their work from the shadows. With Nero gone, Rome plunged into chaos. The year of the four emperors, 69 AD, was a brutal reminder that the empire was never about one man, but about those who controlled the system. Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and finally Vespasian all fought for the throne. But none of them lasted long except the one who understood how Rome truly worked. Galba tried to rule with an iron fist but was quickly eliminated. Otho was charismatic but lacked deep connections, leading to his downfall. Vitellius relied on brute force but underestimated the power of hidden influences. It was only Vespasian, a general from humble origins, who managed to survive the chaos. But was it just his military skill, or was there another force guiding his rise? Vespasian was no ordinary ruler. Unlike the power-hungry elites before him, he understood the game and played it wisely. He did not challenge the unseen forces that had toppled emperors before him. Instead, he worked with them. He restructured the Senate, making it seem like a return to Republican values, while secretly consolidating power. He focused on rebuilding Rome's economy, not through oppressive taxes, but by reviving trade networks that had long been controlled by silent players. His ability to balance both the public and private powers of Rome ensured his survival. For the first time in years, Rome had stability. But it came at a cost. True power remained in the shadows, more secure than ever. Vespasian's rule marked a shift. The days of openly tyrannical emperors were over. Rome's rulers now had to work with the hidden forces rather than against them. His sons, Titus and Domitian, inherited not just an empire but an understanding. Those who ignored the unseen hands of Rome would not last. Domitian, despite his brutal rule, learned too late that paranoia alone could not protect him. In 96 AD, he was assassinated in a plot so well orchestrated that it was as if history had repeated itself once more. Each emperor thought they controlled Rome, but the truth was clear. Rome controlled them, and the real rulers, those whose names never appeared in history books, continued to shape the world from behind the curtain. As the dust settled from Domitian's assassination, Rome entered a new phase. One where emperors no longer ruled unchecked, but as figureheads carefully placed by those who truly controlled the empire. The Senate officially restored power to itself. But in reality, it was the unseen network of advisors, spies, and financiers who dictated the course of history. Nerva, the man chosen to replace Domitian, was not a strong leader but a safe one. His rule was short, but it introduced a new strategy. The careful selection of successors based on their ability to maintain stability rather than their birthright. The custodes umbrae had perfected their craft. No longer would Rome suffer from erratic emperors. Only those who understood the game would be allowed to rule. This led to the rise of the 5 good emperors: Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. Each of them brought stability, but they were not truly independent. Trajan expanded the empire to its greatest territorial extent, but his wars were carefully managed to benefit Rome's hidden elite. Hadrian, instead of pushing further, consolidated power, reinforcing Rome's defenses and ensuring that control remained absolute. Antoninus Pius ruled peacefully, keeping the Senate and military satisfied while avoiding any radical shifts in power.